and stuff like that.
Know that they will be okay. Everything. That's another thing. Those beings were like, they will be okay. Like you can wait for them and everything like that if you want to, whatever. Everything returns to the light, is what they were saying. Everything comes back to being good. I don't know 100% that that actually was the moon or if it was just me manifesting something
Wow.
within the ether of a realm. So that's
That's
why I'm curious about. I have no idea. I can't say for certain.
that is a whole nother story right there. You're right. I'm glad that you mentioned that because we are assuming that, oh, I
Mhm.
saw the moon, I thought about the moon, I went to the moon. There are people who say that they not even say astral project, but me astral project, but remote view.
Oh,
And
yeah.
they try to remote view the moon, and some say they see that they see totally different things. Like there's times that they see that they're clearly being blocked by other beings, like they're not being able to physically see anything. And then there's others that say that they see like what that being wants them to see. Like people don't
Mhm.
understand. The more if you really just stop thinking that all this stuff is like total just fantasy, and you really start to pay attention to the stories. That's why it's so great that people are coming out with their stories, and you're like, weeding out the ones that you just think are just, people are just trying to get attention, whatever. But looking at the
Mhm.
ones that are serious, there is so much that we need to be paying attention to that we're not.
Mhm.
It's unbelievable, you know. Um,
Oh, Joe Dispenza. He had a meditation one time that he brought up that he saw like this blue being, and uh and I wondered, you know, I don't know how deep he went into meditation, but I thought that was very fascinating. That, and he's one of my idols that I thought has been really amazing man. Because that's why I call my channel Demystification, because that's one word, that's like his thing. He's all about demystifying, spiritual things, him being like, no, there's actual like science to back up spirituality, and he's all about, explaining the mind body soul connection, and that there's way more to life than just the body and all that. So that's why I really adore him. um but the fact that he saw beings, so anybody who's really seeing these things, like you say, like remote viewing or out of body or astral projection, all those things. And I find that fascinating that they're seeing different things when they get to the moon, or yeah, there's people that I heard of somebody, I don't know if they were remote viewing what they were doing, but they get they get somewhere like to the moon, say that, and then there's these beings that show up and they're like, go back. And they
mhm,
go back. Yeah. So I'm like,
yeah.
what's that mean? Okay. But then you brought up something about soul trap. So what is the soul trap thing? I've heard
Okay,
that, like,
so
yeah, I've heard some
yeah,
of it, I think.
there are people who think, and this was brought up during me and Angela Comfort's story as well. People who think that the moon, that there's some kind of a whole, I guess, a system or a whole like establishment, something on the moon where they are literally using it as a means of taking the incoming souls, like people who pass, and their I guess not to say soul, their spirit is coming and kind of stopping it, trapping it there at the moon, making it believe through these holograms or whatever,
Hmm.
making them believe that they have to go back and then sending them right back into another body. And that's like, and I guess in the gist
Wait,
that
like
is
into another body or back into their own body?
well, no, because it's like reincarnation. So I mean, I don't
Oh,
know if it's back into, yeah, I don't know if it's back into their body. That's a good question. I don't know if it's just that, but generally, like to be reincarnated and to start a whole nother life. And so to kind of assume that, okay, all of these reincarnations are not just for soul growth and because we're here to learn, blah blah, but that we're actually trapped. Like there are higher level negative beings who are doing this to us. It's kind of the gist of it. So
ooh,
that kind of matrix
ooh.
type dystopian belief,
Mhm.
and that's why, and that's how I take these. Like, I mean, I want to, like anybody else, I want to believe that it's love, light, happiness, and unicorns. I love unicorns. So, so I want to believe it's all that always, and I always kind of gear towards that. But I just for our benefit, I make sure that I put in the possibility, like, okay, what if it was this,
Yeah.
so we can rule that out, But that's always there. And there's a lot of people who feel like we are literally trapped here and we need to get the heck out, need to figure it out.
And that's why I'm so curious though, because when I was there, it was you've lived other lives and you have the possibility of going back to your body and but you don't have to. And it was like you can go, you can stay here, you can, traverse these different realms of, existence and you can ask more questions. You get like they weren't forcing me to do anything, but I often wonder, if they were bad, then well, then they would ask a lot of questions to be manipulative into kind of pushing me into doing what they would want me to do,
Yeah.
which is go
And
back or choose the body, right?
that's why I love your story because, like I said, I felt that good energy. But you're 100% right, and I'm glad you mentioned that it it kind of doesn't make sense for it to be bad in that respect. Like they're like, hey, you can stay here, chill with us, grab a drink, you know,
Yeah,
you
right,
know,
right,
go to a couple of planets and chill out there or whatever, do what you want, have
right,
fun. But
right.
it
I
like
could go. I didn't have to
yeah,
stay there, but
and
they were
and
like, do it.
and that's where it comes to play because sometimes it really just comes to what kind of life you live. I don't know if we want to say the previous life, but then there's a question of multiple dimensions. We can get into that in a minute. But there's
Right?
also the fact that there's no time out there, so everything is happening simultaneously. Like if you think about it,
Mm-hmm.
all those rivers were running. All those rivers of your life were
Mm-hmm.
running
Yes,
simultaneously.
they were.
Okay, so
All
that
happening
just
at once.
shows you.
They were running.
So it makes me wonder. I'm like, okay, when they're communicating with you, there's like 10 or 15, maybe thousands of other yous in these other rivers. This gets really mind-boggling, but I like to talk about it because
Hmm.
it's just great. It's out there.
They
But
keep
all
they're
these,
the keepers of all these goddamn rivers of mine.
yes. So you have all these rivers of you just flowing through there, and it's like at least one or two of them, unless you're like a saint, at least a few of those are not doing the right thing, like
Right.
maybe one or two, right? But
Hmm.
I guess maybe for them it really goes by a person, not to say, yeah, person by person experience. So like if they were talking to a you from another life that came out at some point,
Whoa.
then
Yeah.
oh, this is really getting my head like then I guess, and if they had lived a bad life, then it would be a whole other experience. Like, no, go back to your body, or no, you got to start over again. But
Right,
because
right.
10-year-old, you just died because you wanted to take care of some cows,
Right. Like such a selfless life, right? Don't I sound like a saint? Oh my God. I sound so sweet.
So this little 10-year-old version of you in this particular life,
Oh,
and
I know. I have moments where I like think back to like my life because they say like if you've experienced trauma, you should like think of little you and like hug little you and like big you should come and save little you in like moments that you
yeah,
were being abused and like I try to do that, and it does feel very healing. I mean,
yeah,
but anyway,
yeah.
sorry, that's total
But
sidetrack. But
but yes, it sounds like for a being like that, it would make sense that you would have that freedom, and it's I've heard this elsewhere where people literally, I mean, at first you're upset if you've done bad, and especially if you've done bad and you don't believe that anybody should be telling you what to do, then you're gonna have an attitude about them
hmm
telling you go back, you have no other choice. You're like, what are you talking about? I want to stay here. It feels nice. Sorry, you can't,
hmm
but
right. Then you're gonna
but
get mad at them, like yeah.
yeah. But then I've heard like with Aaron Green, another one who just had full, like it's like he was sitting there too with this being or another, however it works, I don't know, but just kind of deciding how he looked, what family, what father, what this, like in detail,
Wow.
had full, ability to decide what he would do and how he would do it. So if it really is merit based and we're safe with these beings, then I'm all for it. It sounds like it's like you said, we're eternal beings, and maybe we get bored. Maybe this is how
Yeah.
we stay entertained.
No,
Um,
that's what I wonder.
yeah, so it makes sense, but then there's always, so this is back to a question I had that I didn't get to ask, and it ties into this. So there is that, and that's all awesome, beautiful, great, sounds exciting. Um, but who this if this being kind of created your energy and managed your life and your lives and all that stuff, where does this dark element come from? Is this
Dark element.
something created, the dark shadow, the demons, all this stuff, the
Right.
negative, right? The
Yeah. I
so
never
are they
asked.
see, and That's what I'm saying. This is why I can't. That's my family. I can't die. They look at me like, "Why are you saying that?" But I mean, I've been through enough experience that I'm thinking, "Can I? Is it possible? I don't know." But
Mhm.
but I just feel like they know I would ask a lot of questions. Um, so they're
Well,
like, "No,
then, oh man,
keep her on Earth,
yeah.
keep her on Earth. Don't bring her up here." But I just wonder because it's like, okay, were they created by that being? Are they being managed by that being? Are they really just being like
Ooh.
renegade lost souls that just went completely dark and are not being managed by anybody? So they really are just floating around and causing mischief, but
Mhm.
everything ultimately, if we have this belief of a overall arching, creator, then they at some point in some way or fashion were created by the creator. Like they are still part of it in some
Well,
way.
they still have their own free will. We all do. Even these beings that have, their job to do, and um, these I've heard people explain, um, with the hypnosis healer Alex. I did an interview with him. Even that was my first and only interview that I've ever done with anybody because I'm just like I just adore this man, and he,
Hmm.
helped me be able to get rid of at least one of these negative and entity attachments, and I felt so great after. Um, but he explained once that sometimes these negative entities they follow you from life to life. Maybe you accidentally opened a doorway at one point, and sometimes they can like try to listen in to your life plan that you're planning.
Mm.
Like I said, sometimes you can avoid some of these plans that you make, and sometimes you can't avoid these plans that you make. And these negative entities, they can listen in, they can get close to the light, but they can't stay in the light. It hurts, like like they hate it.
Mm.
um and sometimes they just want to knock you off the course, and sometimes there's earthbound entities. Now I know this certainly from George Ritchie's book, that or no, I'm sorry, not George Ritchie, this was from Alex as well. But I absolutely love him. He posts like awesome stuff about his findings and about all of his clients that allow him to post stuff. um but so he talked about, there was a spirit of like a scientist who didn't realize he was dead. And he was in his laboratory and he saw people in his lab, and he was trying to like tell them, hey, don't do that, or like give them ideas and stuff like that. And some of these people would pick up on his ideas, and and he's like, why aren't you giving me credit? I gave you that idea. But like people hear when a spirit talks to them, they just hear it as their own inner voice. They don't think it's somebody else influencing them.
Wow.
Right? Isn't that crazy?
And
And
that's
then
dangerous.
it
I had the
is.
same conversation with Angela Comfort that, these negative beings, there are people who have like they think they have severe depression. They think that they hate themselves and they're just being
Hmm.
hounded all day long by these negative beings
Hmm.
that have nothing better to do.
Hmm. Those negative thoughts, don't listen to them because they're probably not yours. You
Uh-huh.
know. um, but then there was one more that fascinated me as well. That was, I'm trying to remember what it was. This guy who had like I think it was like a gambling addiction, and he was an earthbound spirit because he couldn't give up that gambling addiction even in his death. Right? He's like, I gotta gamble.
What?
Why can't I gamble? But then he like energetically, because he had no idea that how this whole dead thing works, and he got energetically connected to like a depressed man or a
Mm.
depressed somebody, and he was like, I was so frustrated trying to get this person to get up off their ass and like and go gamble, and this person just won't gamble, and I'm so frustrated. I don't know why I'm stuck with this person, don't know
Mm.
how I'm energetically here with this person, and they won't. And so I was like, wow, that's crazy, like.
That's it would be
Sometimes spirits,
amazing if
it
he
sounds like
motivated.
sometimes they just get stuck.
Can you imagine if he motivated him to get out of the depression just to gamble? Like that would have
Right.
just been
Right. Oh
that would have been awesome.
no. Right. You're like, gambling took me out of my depression.
Now I have no money.
Yeah, so even better. But yeah.
Wow, okay. I'm glad you mentioned these. These are all things that, people, should hear. So let me try to stay on point here because I
Yes.
know there's no way I have 48 questions, but I did make notes here. So let's just see what's happening. She's like, look, I'm not staying here that long.
Oh, I don't care. You're
let me
good.
let me just see what's important to ask here. But okay, we meant let me just also like we answered some of this. So um okay. Oh yes, okay. So when you were saying that your mother had the orange glow, I was like, she's seeing auras. Ooh, I'm so excited for
Yeah,
you.
what's up with orange? I don't know what that is.
Yeah, I have no clue either, but and if somebody knows, leave it in the comment section. But in my mind, I assume, and I'll just say it quickly because I don't know if this is real, but I always think about the chakra system. So I'm like, okay, I wonder if the colors correlate
Right.
to the chakras. That would be cool.
I wonder. Yeah.
And when you read the raw material, I'm telling you, some of the things that we're talking about right now, you're going to be looking at it like, oh my God, oh my God. Because they talk about energy, like how we have different energies and colors that are associated with them. And this is
Hmm.
going to trigger that, whatever. So, all right. So, what was interesting to me, I know you don't have an answer for it, but I definitely have made a note, is when you were saying that your father and your sister's spirits were ebbing and flowing.
Hmm.
Any idea at all what that could be, or is just really just a big question mark for you? You knew it wasn't something good. You felt like that's not good.
Yeah,
But I just
like it
wonder what
didn't
that is.
seem good, and it made me wonder. Now that I think about it, I wonder if it has to do with their thoughts. Like if they're thinking negative thoughts and that's why it's getting lower. And because I know that that affects mine and that affects other
Mm.
people's. So I'm like, okay, that probably is what it was, is that they were just thinking negative things. And my dad is a pretty negative thinker when he was alive and everything. And I mean, I guess even in his death, you know.
Mm.
Um, and then my sister, yeah, I don't know. I didn't know what her thoughts were because I didn't care. But and she was mad when she was like, "Well, what were my thoughts?" You know, I was like, "I don't know because I didn't listen." And she was
that's
like, mm. So
that's
she was
how
like,
you
"Okay, I
know
don't believe it."
that's how you know we stay the same outside of our body because you were still kind of like and having that
I don't like
relationship
her.
with your
Yeah.
sister. You're like, I don't care about your thoughts, whatever. Like,
No. Yeah, absolutely.
okay. So I also wanted to mention what was really interesting about when you first saw, and I mean, my questions are all over the place. I usually try to keep them together, but it is what it is right now.
Yeah.
Um, uh, one thing that I've noticed, and I also mentioned this to Angela, was that when people see their soul, like if it's still like kind of, whether it's the soul or even just the astral body, they see white, so it'll be a white light, and then like surrounded in blue or bluish, like a bluish white light. So it was very
Hmm.
interesting that you saw those entities in that color as well. So there's something to
Hmm.
that. And then a lot of times when people are seeing beings, no matter what, when they are like of the positive, generally speaking, and then they usually see them with robes. So it was interesting that they had robes. Did they have robes on? Or
Yes, it looked
okay.
like they had robes on, and it was just when I looked closer, like paid attention to what they were wearing, you know, it was like the energy was flowing up and down, is what it
Mm.
looks like all I don't know, just like ooh, I don't know. I don't know how to describe
um
it. Sorry.
Now, one thing you didn't mention here, and I'm wondering if it's because you did, when you were talking about your other lives, you said that and I really would love to go into what you do know about them. I personally, if you don't want to share it, I can take it off the record. But I'm wondering if one of them is because you mentioned in other podcasts that you knew that you were your current mother, you were her husband in another life. So is
I
that
know
what
that's why
people
I didn't want to
sometimes?
mention it.
See, I knew it. I
No,
knew.
that's
Okay.
okay. You can share it. It's fine. It's
But
out now.
so I mean, okay, it's out, but it's like it's also important that people understand that we
I'm
are
not
that.
sexually attracted to my mother. If it's weird,
No,
if
no,
people are like, "What's wrong with you? You're weird," and it's incest. I'm
no,
like, it's not
no, no,
incest.
no.
It's literally
Look,
just
look,
what
look.
happened.
You're talking to somebody who is like, I mean, I'm not all the way out there. I'm not fully psychic, but I understand what this is all about to some extent, and that to me is
Yeah.
not weird at all.
Okay.
Because one thing I actually mentioned to Angela during hers was that there is a guy who has had a I don't know if he had a full-on NDE or just an experience, like a spiritual experience, but he
Mhm.
was able, through hypnotherapy, to find out that his son was an ex-friend that killed him for money. It was like yeah. So,
Uh-huh. Oh,
so
damn.
it just these are the kind of stories that people have to start getting used to understand that when you're in a family, maybe where, and this is just talking about just in general, there are people who are just like, I don't understand why I have so many problems with my mother. I don't understand why me and my father cannot get along. I don't understand why I can't
Mhm.
stand this particular child, which is like the worst
Mhm.
case scenario, but it happens sometimes. And then
Mhm.
when you are able, if you're able to understand who that spirit is, and in what history you have with that spirit, then it all makes perfect sense. Perfect
Yeah.
sense. And a lot of times, the ones
Yep.
that you had the biggest problem with, if we're here to forgive and to love, the one that tried the one that stabbed you in your back is the one that got God or whoever is managing this is going to put right in your face. It's going to be your mother, your father, your sister, your brother, your child. So that
Mhm.
you have no other choice but to figure it out.
Absolutely. And my sister, I think it was like she was like an enemy in one of my lives. And I remember because she was asking me all kinds of questions. She's like, "Well, if dad was your best friend, well, you're just trying to suck up to him. Like you're trying to be buddy buddy." And I'm like, "No, I don't give a crap if I'm my dad didn't really pay attention to me. So I'm like, I don't care if I have his attention or not. She's the one that cared." And she's like, "Mom's not your husband. That's weird." And I'm like, "Yeah." And some of our siblings were mom and I's kids. We had I'm like, my brother David was my son, and like, and like I'm like, he chose to be a man again in this life, and like,
Hmm.
and then my sister was like, "Really? Well, who was I?" And I was like, "I don't know. I didn't ask. Like I didn't
But you're
care."
completely new. I have no clue who you are.
Yeah, maybe she was, maybe she's not.
Yeah,
I don't know. I never,
and that
now I want to know.
yeah, that happens sometimes too. Uh, but yeah, I mean, this is the kind of thing that people need to know is a reality.
Mhm.
It also shows you how much you have to be able to let go of the past, to let go of those previous experiences and move forward and be in the now.
Yeah.
Because there are people who, it could explain a lot of the, not to say problems, but just things that we have that we just can't explain. Like when people are like, my whole life I felt like I was, a woman, or my whole life I felt like I was a man, and then you do
You were both.
hypno, well, you do hypnotherapy, and like, in the book, I think by Michael Newton, Life, one of his books about the hypnotherapy, he said that there are a lot of people who, if they had too many male lives, for whatever reason, they kept choosing male lives. When they finally become a woman, they feel like, okay, what is happening? What is this? Like, what
Uh-huh.
is going on?
Uh-huh.
So
Yep, that's me. A lot of my lives were male. It's very weird. The first life that I looked at was female, and I was so selfish and I did everything wrong. And I think it's maybe because like I was new to it, I guess. And then I had a buttload of like male lives. And then back to being female, here I am now. And I'm such a tomboy. My boyfriend's like, "You're like a dude, but with boobs," and I'm like, I know that that's not really, he wasn't trying to compliment me.
she goes, it worked, but no.
I'm like, I'm sorry, blame my past lives, I guess, but like, I'm sorry, I'll try to be better.
But it's like we really are these beings that, we're kind of we're not to say some of us thrown into, because some of us do not have a choice, are thrown into these avatars, and then sometimes we are making these choices because we want to experience everything,
Mhm.
whether it's us or God, but something wants to experience everything, and that is happening,
Mhm.
um, and we just have to. I just think at some point, it's like when you're playing poker. Wait,
Mhm.
who's that guy who I don't know country like that, but my father did play this one country song, and it was like, you better know when to hold them, know when to fold them, know
Yeah,
when
I
to,
know that song.
Kenny Loggin, I think, or something like that.
Yeah,
But
yeah, it
it
sounds
really
familiar.
is what life is about. It's like you're given these cards, you're given this avatar, you're given these circumstances, this family, this whatever, this geography, this culture, this religion. Now
I
figure
don't know
out
about
what.
given, sometimes you choose to.
Okay, or choose it, but you have these cards in your hand. It's like, how are you going to play your hand, you know
Yeah.
um and that's
You
just
have a
really what it
choice
is.
in it every time. Like I was talking about, I have all those possibilities and I have to look at it and I choose it and it breaks down that possibility. But the new possibilities open up from that choice.
Oh, and let's talk about that. Okay, so that is another time that I was just getting goosebumps. I'm like, this is awesome, I love this. um so okay, so you have this river, and at the same time you're saying weaving, which is a big thing, because there's people who go and they say that the actual our whole existence is a big woven cloth. Like it actually, like we are all
Mhm.
the little threads in this cloth, which is amazing.
Right. Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
but you said that you had two choices in your hand, these two rocks. So how do you know? and this is very weird. Not to say weird, but I want a very specific question. When you had the two rocks, or you were looking at rocks, how did you know what these choices were? Did you actually see like a little movie playing where you're seeing something happening? Was it a knowing? Was it just a knowing?
It was a knowing. This time when the decisions were made, it was a knowing. And I knew that these were because we made all the decisions first. And it was a feeling. It was a feeling of this one is and I know in the moment because I'm putting myself back in the memory, and in that moment I knew what those rocks were. I couldn't see what they were, but I had a feeling and I knew this rock is the choice of something something, and this other rock that I'm holding is the choice of something something. But now in my body now, I'm looking back and trying to remember what was it? What was it? Like
Yeah.
I can't remember what it was. But at the time, the feeling was I know exactly what these are because I made these choices with this being, but they can't happen at the same time.
Yeah.
And I'm curious now in my adulthood, I'm like, was one like be a mom and the other one be spirituality,
Mhm.
guru or whatever? Because I'm like, I want both to happen. Like, I want to be, helping people
Mhm.
spirituality, but I also want to be a mom. Can it happen at the same time? And they're like, no, that would make sense, logical sense. But I wonder if that's what these two rocks were, because those are my two passions in life.
Mhm.
But I can't say that for certain
Yeah.
but at that
I,
time, I knew exactly what those rocks were at that time.
I
But
I
right
am
now,
pretty sure that they are blocking you from knowing that. Like,
yeah, I
like
know. I'm
almost
like, they must,
98% sure.
right. I know. And I'm like, why? Why are they blocking me from knowing that? Because like what harm does it do me knowing these things? But maybe it would do harm.
No.
I don't know.
It,
But I'm like, what harm would it do? Come on, you
yeah.
guys.
It's so weird because
Um,
on one hand, some people really, like you said, you saw up until like 9 years into the future after the event, right?
yeah.
Um, so some things it's like you can see, and then some things are just, I guess, well, assuming that this is on the right and this is God and this is all positive stuff,
I
then
hope.
these are very wise, yeah, these are very wise beings, and they just understand, like they can see that domino effect, that if you knew what these two choices were, that it would affect the way that you moved and did things and the choices you made, and then it might even
Mhm.
take away those choices.
They
It might
can
not
see that
happen.
river and all those
Yeah.
possibilities happening at once. Yep. Yeah.
Yeah. So sometimes you really just have to let go and let God, with these things.
Right. Like, oh my God,
Yeah.
right? That's a
Yeah.
good quote.
But there are a few things that you said that are things that I have been noticing lately and that are just very important to note. So you said that you feel the seven deadly sins hold you
Yeah.
back.
Yes.
And I've noticed that is that, so like sins or attachments to the human body,
Hmm.
um, like that gambling and things like that, but also love or attachment. Like if you're too attached to another
Yes.
being, then
Hmm.
that could be your reason why you would be holding back. And then I hope I get this right, but I'll I say things wrong, I'll just put up the right image, whatever. But in looking through this, I happened to, or looking through something that had come to my mind, a whole nother separate situation. I actually saw the definition of nirvana, I think, and it said something about it actually means to like burn away, right? And I like that idea because it's like you have to burn away these attachments before you leave in order to kind of like move on to God, to leave the earthly realm and to move into the spiritual realm, to go into the higher realms. That you have to burn away these attachments, these carnal sins and stuff like that.
Know that they will be okay. Everything. That's another thing. Those beings were like, they will be okay. Like you can wait for them and everything like that if you want to, whatever. Everything returns to the light is what they were saying. Everything comes back to being good. It's just one of those, like, I think that it's like the seven hermetic principles, I think it's called. And one of them, there's the pendulum swing, there's the, I don't know, I don't have to list all of them, but like everything will return, everything has a pattern, everything will return back to good. And that's why what I hold on to, even with, society nowadays, I'm like,
Yeah.
everything will return to good. Maybe not in this lifetime, but it will return.
Eventually, eventually.
The pattern of society will heal itself, hopefully, eventually. Yes.
Mhm. Okay, all right. So I have to make so somebody needs to just comments like I love when the being told you that they can make edits or changes to your life. I'm like, why can't I go to the moon and have this experience? Can we fix some things here? But
Yeah, like, well, you can do it. I had it happen during a meditation because I was crying and I was like, please don't let
oh,
this bad thing happen in my life, you know. And I'm like, and I'm visualizing them and I'm like, please connect with me right now. I'm begging you, connect with me right now because I just really don't want this awful thing to happen in my life. It would hurt me so bad. And I saw um a big energetic blue white hand kind of just shove its hand in the river and go doop like that, and the this water just kind of went and like swished off to the side, and that was like symbolic, I guess, of like I
wow.
assume, okay, fine, you're begging and your heart is aligned with your true intention, and we know that you are capable of this change. So if you are, so you know, we will force this direction in your life. And I saw that happen, and then I felt this peace just wash. It felt like washed over me, and I was like, oh, like tingles all throughout my body, and I was like, oh, and it was relaxing. And then I heard in a male's voice, I heard, um, "It is done, peace," and I was like, "What's done? What's done? What is done? Tell me what is done." And I, of
Uh,
course, didn't receive an answer, but so far, a lot of things have happened in my life since then, and that bad thing didn't happen. And you know, so I, I'm like some things that would be considered miracles have happened since then, and like after that, like literally that day, you know, I received a phone call and like they're like, yeah, the thing's been canceled or the thing's been pushed or whatever. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And I'm like, oh wow. You know, and they're like, why? Because, you know, this other thing that happened. And yeah, I don't want to go into detail, but
wow. Okay. So
I'm
I mean,
like, whoa.
so I mean, do you attribute that to prayer? Like, what would you say that was a prayerful type thing? Was it meditation? Was it visualization? Like, what do you think it was? The sincerity of it, of your
It,
energy?
yeah, authenticity is humongous in this. You have to know yourself really well, you know. And for me, I was looking deep, 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 deep down and going, am I capable of being, you know, realigning myself and not giving in to, you know, like the sin of wrath or the sin of, you know, not obsession, but like, uh, I guess obsession, you know. um, and just like, am I capable of change? Am I actually capable of change? And I was like, yes, yes, I am. And then I'm like, I feel worthy then to beg these beings to help me create this change in my life. And that's when I visualized connecting with them again. I visualized them in front of me and me being in their presence again, in hopes that that would magnetically, or like, you know, not magnetically, but energetically connect us again.
Yeah,
And I kept, you know, just holding the memory of seeing them in my mind until I felt, you know, just like a warm, like a friendly, loving presence around me. And then at that point, I that's when I started immediately just like jumped on board, being like, please, 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 please. And I'm like, you know my heart, you know my intentions, you know that I can do this, like please. And I'm like, I don't know if it's even possible, if it's too late to ask you, like please, please, please. And then that's when I the visualization of the hand in the river doing that, I didn't that came to me. That wasn't me coming up with it, because the only visualization that was in my mind was me just holding that memory of seeing them in my head,
yeah,
just because I was like, I don't know how else to connect to them other than just holding the memory of seeing them in my mind.
yeah,
And but then that visualization came to me out of seemingly nowhere. I assume they sent it to me to be like, here you go.
yeah. To let you know, because
Yeah,
we're visual people.
yeah,
But I feel like there's a lot in that people can just dissect. But I think that's a way that a lot of us can, you know, make miracles happen, you know, or help them to happen. But I also feel, and I told this to other NDEers, I feel like you guys, because you've been in that moment, I usually even give the advice to say you should go back to, especially if it's a positive one. If it's a negative one and you're in hell, don't go back there ever
Yeah,
again.
don't go.
Like just let that be done, you know. But
Mhm.
if it's a positive one and you were in a space of knowledge and love, then always tell them to take their memory and go back into that moment. And there's a lot of power in that. It really does seem to be a lot of power in it. And you just confirm that.
Mhm.
But okay, so then one thing that you mentioned, I don't know if you mentioned it here, but I thought it was awesome because I'm always trying to explain to people that these drugs and alcohol and things like that are
Mhm.
generally a problem when it comes to our spirituality, that the two don't really mix. And you had
Mhm.
mentioned in previous podcasts that your psychic powers tended to increase when you were not drinking alcohol at all. And you just kind of,
Mhm.
yeah, so I just want you to just
Touch
confirm
on it.
that.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I confirm 100%. I remember there was when I was, trying to quit and I was like, I kind of want to, I haven't drinking for like a couple months, I could maybe have a sip of beer. And I started to drink a little bit more and I felt like a buzzing in my head and then I felt like just like really angry and I don't know what that is, but I just know that that's what I felt, that I'm just reporting what I felt. And then I was off, emotionally off for like 2 weeks after that.
Mm,
And that's when I was like, yeah, no, I can't have
yeah,
any
yeah. I feel
because
like when
I don't know.
I feel like when you're sensitive, and this has been my experience too, like never any drugs or anything like that. And when I was in business school, I tried to drink a little bit and it just was so depressing. Like it really was so anti me. I couldn't even do it. Like they would make fun of me and I'm like, okay, make fun because I'm not doing this. But
Yeah.
but
Uh-huh.
I feel like there's some people who actually do it to suppress it. Like if they have psychic powers that they're trying to suppress, but they don't understand it,
Mhm.
or they're finding themselves surrounded by negative energies because they don't know how to deflect them, then I've heard people who actually do this to numb it, to make it go away. And so
It
there's
doesn't
truth to
make them
that.
go
So
away.
then
But yeah, it does.
let me see. And I'm just mentioning things that I just love from the story. So the animals having the aura around them as well, I thought was awesome. So it just kind of really just shows you,
And
that we
plants
as
and trees. Yeah, I forgot to mention the pine trees that we had like a light around them
wow,
too.
they're all alive. They all have a
I
part of
know.
God, right? That's amazing. When you talk about the glittering snow, it makes me wonder sometimes, like, where were you exactly? Because there's times that people, when they leave, like you said, there's a lot of different dimensions, lots of different planes, lots. And so it just, to me, it's just a question is like, where were you exactly? Because there's sometimes that people go into a space that looks like Earth,
Mhm.
and um, for some people, like I remember this woman was saying she left her house, everything looked really like magical, beautiful, but there were no people, and there should have been at
Oh,
least one or two. So it was like almost like it was not to say a simulation, but the double of Earth, but no people. And I've
oh
heard that
my
before.
gosh. That's
Yeah.
actually kind of cool. My freaking cousin had I think it was an out of body experience, perhaps. He suffers from seizures, and he was like, "Yeah, I was in my body, and then suddenly I was out of my body, and then I could see my body, and then I was in my dad's apartment, and I could control. Somehow, I figured I don't know how long I was there, but it felt like a long time, and I could control." If I moved a spoon, it would open a door, and I'm like, what? I'm like, what?
What?
Yeah, exactly. And he was like, and then I, it was suddenly I was in some hotel room and it was like an Armageddon reality. And I was like, what in gosh's name? So I have no idea what that was, but um, I don't know. Maybe it was another realm. I don't Oh yeah, the
Mm.
farm. Sorry, I was gonna say that where I was. I mean, I thought I was because I had just finished being in the barn when I went back to the snow, um, and just looking at the snow. So I wonder, being an adult and looking back at the memory, I wonder if it's because I was seeing through like energy. I wasn't seeing through human eyes. So I wonder if human eyes are limited.
Oh,
And so maybe it's that. That's what I wonder what it is.
yes,
And I
yes.
wonder also, was I seeing my aura reflecting in the snow or what was going on? I don't know what I was seeing. But I know it was beautiful. And I remember that when I came back to my body and it was like the next day, my sister and I let the cows out of the barn and we were walking through the snow together, and I ran over to that spot that I had looked at the snow, and I sat down, and then I was looking at the snow, and I put my face really close to the snow, and she's like, "What are you doing, you weirdo?" And I'm like, and then I like started crying, and I'm like, "It doesn't look the same. It's not sparkly. It's not colorful
Oh,
anymore. It was way more colorful, you know." And I said, "When I died," and then I looked at her, and then she like looked was like, and then I'm like, "I'm sorry. When I had my dream, you know." Like I corrected. And she's like, yeah, maybe it's just more vivid in the dream. And I'm like, whatever. And then that's when she actually brought up astral projection, and when I was a kid, and I wondered what that was, and I was like, well, if astral projection is similar to a near death experience, I want that again, And so as a kid, I kept a dream journal, and that's because I heard that that's one of the ways to start getting into that and everything. And I tried and I tried and I tried for the longest time as a kid to do that, but I couldn't. And then I finally figured out how to do it when I was an adult. But then as soon as I figured out how to do it as an adult, I was told not to do it.
yeah.
So I'm like, God dang it. I spent all these
Yeah.
years trying to do it, and then I did it, and I told not to do it. But
Yeah. What I thought was funny when you were telling your story, because you were, and it kind of reminds me of Angela, to be honest, a little story, but it just reminds me of something that she said during hers, where you were thinking certain things. You're like, oh God, I hope they can't hear what I'm thinking because I'm gonna like
yeah.
you were trying to be like mischievous or withhold the truth. And
Mhm.
I was like looking, I'm sitting there smirking, probably the same way they were. I'm like, they can hear everything you're thinking. Like
Exactly. They
you're
can hear
not
what
hiding
they hear.
anything.
Exactly.
Um, but
I was like, wait a second.
I love that it's whether they started to back away or you yourself, like it's like because they clearly heard what you were thinking, like, oh, she's trying to lie to us or whatever.
Mhm.
And then once you realize that, like, it's just so weird that you started to like pull back. You're like, I don't feel worthy. I don't feel like I should be. And just in that thought itself, the belief that you were not supposed to be in their presence, it's almost like you were being sucked away. And then like it's
Mhm.
like, had you not stopped that and just realized, and I love what they said. They say, I love you. There's nothing wrong so long as you're willing to learn. And that is big, and
Mhm.
that is something
It
that we
makes
all
me
have to
cry again. Like
remember.
I'm getting
I'm
teary-eyed.
sorry.
No, you don't have to be sorry. It was a beautiful, profound moment because I
Mhm.
always feel like I'm so unworthy. I'm so unworthy. I'm so unworthy. And then I'm like, wait a second, I am worthy. We're all worthy. If we're willing to learn, we are worthy.
Yeah. So I mean, keeping it like if it is what it appears to be, quote unquote, and if it really are these beings that are loving and helping us to grow and to these have these experiences, it sounds like they really do love us. They really look like you said, it's like a parent to a child, and it's like no matter what you do in all these lives, you're just learning and growing, and you're
Yeah, even when
forgiven
you're trying
before
to lie
you.
to us right now.
Yeah, it's like even now, it's like okay, we know what you're thinking. Like stop it,
I think about it
Yeah.
like if my daughter tries lying to me when she's a teenager, and I'll just be like, I still love you. I know that's a lie, but I still love you. Like just stop trying to lie to me, please.
Mhm. And then you also mentioned about the karmic ties, which I was, when I mentioned with Angela, I was like, I hope this is not the case. But let me give you an example
Mhm.
to explain why I'm concerned about this particular rule.
Right.
Um, and I mean, one I can't give right this moment, but just to say that there are, like, especially if you're a good-looking guy or a girl, there are people who, either like you, stalk you, whatever. You have people who have intention, they want you, but you don't want them.
Right.
Why would anything like that be able to? That's kind of what Angela's story was. Be able to create a karmic tie. I feel like maybe it's not as black and white as that. Like maybe it depends
Yeah,
on the
it's not though.
intention.
Yeah, it's not.
Yeah.
It's based on intentions, and it's based on, every like they it's everybody has free will, and that person would be creating bad energy for themselves, but because you have nothing but pure good energy, that you have good intentions and you just want this person to stop, you need, because I've had stalkers. I've had to like file, orders and stuff, but it's not fun. Especially when, the stalker was my best friend. It's just awful. But um, yeah, it's all, so I'll give an example. It breaks my heart to bring this up, but suicide. There's different energies. And George Ritchie talks about this in his book. There you go.
Hmm.
When it comes to Unaliving yourself. I don't know. Yeah. So
Yeah.
unaliving yourself, as TikTokers say. Um, uh, if you do it with it's all about intention. If you do it with the intention of, I am doing this to myself, I'm ending myself because I'm trying to get back, you're going to see what life is like without me. Like if you're doing it with like malicious intent,
Mm.
that is equivalent to you murdering somebody because you're murdering yourself.
Mm.
Now, if you do it with the intent of, I am in so much pain, just end my pain and torment, please, and you do that, you might find yourself in a realm of like darkness and like just you don't know what's going on, or you'll find you, but it's much easier for them to contact you and connect to you and be like, we love you, come here, please, dear one. Whereas if you do it with a malicious intent, it's going to be harder for them to be like, hey, we love you. Can you please come here and realize that you just did something very bad, or you did something that's very harmful, to your energy, etc. Um, but yeah, it's all about intent. So you take that same thing and you apply it to everything. It's the same action. It's the same action, but it's all about the intention behind it.
Mm.
So if you're malicious, that's creating really bad ties to things. And if you're have good intentions or like you're sad or something like that, that's a different energy. But yeah.
I think you completely answered that for me because that's what it was bothering me. I was like, this doesn't sound like a fair rule. Like usually I'm like, okay, that makes sense, that makes sense. But I'm
All
like, this
about
one
feeling
does.
and energy and
It
intent.
really does. But whatever. Um, I feel like we need an organization that does karmic cleansing. I feel like
Yeah.
we literally need something like some kind of
Hypnosis
organization to go
healers
to.
sometimes.
Like it would
Yeah.
make life, it would make our lives, literally, all of our multiple lives, much
You and me
easier.
started right now. I've been
Yes.
learning how to hypnosis heal people. I'm like, girl, let's do it. I need a partner, okay? Because I like
Seriously.
ideas and like I got all these ideas and I'm like, I need to do spiritual blah 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 blah. And I'm learning. I
Yeah.
took like on a class, it's like a class on Udemy, and it's this one guy that Alex B. Martin actually recommended, and was like, I trust this man, and he's like a psychiatrist and everything like that, and he's teaching like, he's like, I was a regular hypnosis psychiatrist, and I went to school for this, and now I'm giving you this class for like $99, but now it's on sale for like 17 or something. So I'm like, heck yeah, I'm buying that, let's go.
Okay.
It's like 8 hours of video and like sessions and like stuff, and but it's totally worth it. And I think that that would be super important for people to, you know um, get into that brainwave state where they can better, get their conscious mind out of the way and reconnect with their higher self or their guides or whatever, and learn, what is holding me back, or what do I need? Because like, they know what they need on their spiritual journey, but it's your conscious mind that really gets in the way.
Mhm. We get stuck in these bodies, and something you mentioned during your experience confirms all that. Like it's not just the spirit. You're not just the spirit. You're not just the soul. Like you, when you come into this body, you're dealing with ancestral stuff. And I'm not even saying like
Mm-hmm.
curses or this or that,
DNA.
whatever.
Yeah.
Ancestral stuff. The body itself might have certain urges and things that are just completely opposed to what you want to do. So
Mm-hmm.
you're fighting a lot of different things. You're fighting a lot of different things to stay on the right path. And if you see this life as a challenge or a test, and it makes perfect sense that you'd have all this stuff happening. You got dark shadow people staring at you while you sleep.
Mm-hmm.
You got attachments trying to stay and saying, let me just eat off of you. Don't worry about it. Ignore me. Don't worry. I'm not here. I'm not
Yeah,
here.
yeah.
And you
I'm
got
not even
all
here.
the
Pretend I'm not
and
here.
yeah, and that's just the spiritual stuff. We're not even talking about the actual life stuff. I mean, all the different trials and tribulations, and the family and the friends and the strangers and this people against that people and that. So it's just lots of layers of stuff. And it's like if there's people who are just living their lives and stuck in this body, stuck in this mind, materialistic and atheist. I mean, I don't want to down them, but like you don't believe in anything other than the physical. Good luck,
I dated a guy like
because
that.
you're like, good luck because it's like if I feel like you have to every now and then connect with your higher self, aka get a third what do you call it? A third, you mentioned this in your life review, when you're looking at it from the third person point of view, you
Yes.
know, we have to look at our lives every now and then, like take a break, step out, look at our life from a third person point of view, aka the
Mhm.
higher self, so that we can see where we're stuck, what we're doing right, what we're doing wrong, like do a whole analysis, so that we can
Mhm.
keep moving towards the best version of ourselves.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, like there's just a lot of just gems in your story. I love it. I love it. I love it. All
Thank
right.
you.
So let me see. Yeah. So I mentioned that we're going to start the karmic clearing organization. Okay.
Yes,
I'll put a note on
please.
that. I'll
Yes,
put a note
please.
on that.
They told me, go back to your body, stop asking questions. All the answers will come to you. Are you my answer? I don't know. I
And
hope
the
so.
other thing is when you said that you could stay there, like that's kind of my dream because I am not a fan of this planet, have never been. But when they said you could stay there, now here's the question: what do you think that would have actually looked like? Like just, and I know there's no actual answer, but if you have an answer or you feel like you haven't a clue what
Mhm.
that would have looked like, where do you think you would have been exactly? Would you have created your own environment? Would you have been running in craters and throwing rocks at everybody? Like what?
I wouldn't have stayed on that, version of the moon, or if it even was the moon, I wouldn't have stayed there. Um, I probably would have tried out that like Earth-like realm, that George Ritchie talks about, and that, quite a lot of NDEers that I've heard, before they talk about like that Earth-like realm. They're like, it's like Earth, but it's not Earth. There's
Mm.
buildings, but they're not buildings, like they're made out of energy and stuff. And like, yeah, I'd probably, go check that out. And yeah,
And
if
now,
that answers
what
the question.
about now? Tell me if you've ever heard of this and if you believe in this. Like when people are talking about a realm, and I guess you would call it heaven. I guess they would consider it one of the heavens, like one of the lower heavens, where you're still
Sure.
like in a physical form, but you can change form, right? There's the Akashic records, so you have that big library. They see healing centers and things like that. Do you think that that's like a real place, or that you could have gone someplace like that? Like, what do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. Everybody, has their own, like there's different, places. Just you kind of think of it like in the world that we have, because everything as above, so below, you know, um, taking that into account, you look at how the world works today and you see, there's different environments in the world for different types of beings or people or animals to thrive in, and that there are different realms or dimensions for different beings or energies to thrive in. Because that was one of the things. It was they were like everything follows a pattern, and it was very much the seven hermetic principles, and also, isn't that crazy? It's all in sevens. The seven deadly sins, don't do them, and the seven hermetic principles. There's a lot of truth to them. Now, not saying that religion is 100% correct because every religion has something wrong with it. But there are bits and pieces of truth. Um, so yeah, yeah, I think I answered the question.
Okay, and then we're winding down, so we're almost getting there. But I just love the fact that they mentioned to you that while they can't leave that space, that they could telepathically, I guess, communicate with you, and it sounds like they did at least once when you first came back, right?
Yeah. They can send
So
energy just like we can send energy to people. Like there's
yeah.
those energy healer people that can send stuff, and kind of like how Angela and I accidentally, like, my toothache. Ow, I have a toothache today. And then I'm like, "Do you have a toothache?" She's like, "Yeah, I have a toothache today." Yeah.
All right. So they also mentioned that they have helpers and then they have your ancestors that can help you. And this kind of goes back to a lot of the traditional, like let's say African ancestral worship and things like that, or the like Native Americans, how they believe in the ancestors and stuff. So it's
Hmm.
like when you are in one of the like, let's say Abrahamic religions, you kind of look at the other stuff as like really like let's say backwards, like oh they believe their ancestors could help them. And then to be in
Hmm.
that experience with this being, this huge skyscraper being is telling you, like, no, your
The
ancestors can come and
ancestors
help
can
you.
help you. Yeah.
So be nice to your great grandmothers and your grandmothers and grandfathers, because they might be your superheroes one day. They might be able
Exactly. But they
to
gotta
step
go to the
in.
light first so that they can
Yes.
figure out how to work this energy. Otherwise, they might accidentally sap some of your energy, not knowing what they're doing.
Oh
Right.
yes, I've heard that too. 100% that. Sometimes when these spirits visit. And I've had times where I'm so tired, like I mean, even now I'm having that experience,
Mm-hmm.
but so tired that I know it's not I know it's not physical. I know it's definitely something else happening, you know. So
Mm-hmm.
but the thing is that you have to get sensitive enough to know, okay, is it an attachment? Is something literally sitting here sucking my blood, like, you know, it's a vampire?
Yeah.
Or is it a family member that's just visiting and they just don't understand that they are just sapping me dry, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah,
Oops, yeah.
so uh, and this is also confirmed with a lot of NDEers who say that they find that their guardian angel or you know guardian spirit or whatever guide is a great grandfather or great grandmother or something like that. So it kind of makes
Right.
sense. Yeah. All right. So all right. So they're always watching. So that's something that me and Angela was talking about. Like, are we ever private? Never. Like people just don't
Nope.
understand. You're never alone. Never
Mm-hmm.
alone. Even when
Mm-hmm.
you want to be, you're not alone. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so then I like the
When I
part
was
where
doing
you
naughty things as a kid, I remember thinking, wait, they're watching. They know my intentions. They know what I'm thinking. I
the
better not,
watchers are
you know,
watching.
make my dad's coffee with the dog water today, you know.
Oh my God.
Believe me, I thought about it. And the thought that came to me was like, well, at least his immune system's gonna be better, you know, like
No, no. So then another thing that I liked was that you said some things in life we can escape and some things we can't. So like some things are literally set in stone. Like you can use that quote, right? And then others that they can kind of move and maneuver and
Mhm.
free will can change. So
Turn
that's
around and
awesome.
there go, whoop. Yeah.
Yes. Okay, so now here was another big question. Okay. I think we're almost done. I think that's it's like the last two questions.
Right.
Um, all right, so all of these possibilities. So you were okay, so getting back to the river, we have the river, we have these boulders, which I would assume are the things that can't be changed, and then you have the little pebbles and rocks that can be changed, right?
Mhm.
But they also mention that there are a lot of decisions. And that's when you started talking about kind of like the decision tree. Like as you
Mhm.
make one decision, it opens up a few more. Um, do you feel like this? Okay, sorry. And you also said that a lot of these possibilities are waiting. Like they're literally just there, like almost like kinetic energy, where they have the potential to be, but it's only if you
Mhm.
make a certain choice, right? So
Mhm.
does that to you confirm that there are multiple dimensions where there's like a you that made that left turn instead of the right turn? You know, like when they, she's like, I don't
I
know.
wish I could answer that. I had somebody else ask me that question, and he as insightful as you, really. And I wish I could. I don't know. But all of those possibilities are existing at the same time, but they break down. That's the thing. Um,
Wait.
but
Now,
two possibilities.
what you're saying is big right there because what I have heard is that yes, there are all these multiple dimensions because we have these possibilities, but that they a lot of times they disintegrate. Like unless you really focus on that and stay in that direction, they after a while literally just vanish or they disintegrate and they're no
Yeah.
longer. I've heard that before.
I wonder, yeah. I mean, I'm like, you know, when have you ever seen Loki? Like the
Yes.
thing
Yes.
right? That the second season hit so close to home that like on Facebook, that's why it's like my banner. It's the glorious purpose banner where Loki has decided through his love for his friends that he's gonna self-sacrifice, you know, because he's his greatest fear is being alone, right? But he's gonna be at the end of the world or whatever, at the end of time, holding those things and protecting everybody, right? And I'm like, oh my God, like there's all of those realities that he is protecting and he is weaving, you know, and
Mhm.
I that was that it wasn't it didn't hit home, but it got really really close, and I thought that was very fascinating, and that's why I loved it so much. Um,
Mhm.
but yeah, no, they break down and then they open up again, and that's all I can say for certain. But I love the theories. I love the theories, and I wonder, you know, is there another me out there right now? I don't know.
Yeah. And then like kind of the last question is 'cause this was new to me. I never heard you say this in another podcast. Was the nine fives in the yellow surrounded by the
Yeah,
white?
it was a
What
new
in
experience for
the
me.
world was that? Like that sounds like some Matrix type thing. What
I
is
know.
that?
Well, so
Wow.
I love me some numerology, and I don't know how much truth there is to numerology because I have to research that myself.
Mhm.
Um, but I have been finding lots of truth to it and everything. And that happened to be so validating. And I don't know, and I know that five means change, right? And actually, right before I started dating my boyfriend, I woke up at 5:55 in the morning every day for 3 days in a row, no alarm, when I normally wake up at like 8 o'clock
Mm.
or like 7. And but I woke up at 5:55 every morning, and on this what was like the second or third day, I was like, okay, this is getting a little weird. And then by the third day, I was like, okay, am I like in Groundhog's Day or something? What's going on? And then
Wait a minute.
I
That's
know.
9/5s. Maybe that's what it is. Like, okay, when something, okay, I'm just making it up, but this sounds really
Oh my God,
cool.
wait, is that 9/5s? Wait,
Yes, 3 days.
three. Oh, I never made that connection until now. Oh. And that means change, and that means this glorious, validating change. And that's when I started dating my boyfriend.
Yes.
Uh, and I thought
Maybe
he
that's
was
your
gonna say no.
sign.
I had him out. Yeah.
But I say maybe that's your sign in general, because like I noticed that things like that, spiritual things happen in 3 days. I've had like I was blind for 3 days and my sight came back. Weird stuff, right? So so
Whoa.
I've noticed between my stories and others that 3 days is like a spiritual time. So maybe when you start seeing that number, that angel number for 3 days, okay, big, big thing, something big is happening in my life, you
Right.
know.
I mean, I got a job and I woke up at 5:55 in the morning, but it was only for one day. And I was like, oh, something's coming, but is it a big thing? I don't know.
Mm.
But then I got a phone call the second day, but I didn't wake up at 5:55, you know? So I was like, oh, well, I mean, I got the job offer that I thought I didn't think I was going to get, but
Mm.
um, there's something else. Yeah. Um, no, just like during that thing where it popped up in my mind. I don't know, but yeah, wow, wow. I never thought about that. 3 days. That is 9/5.
Yeah.
Crazy. All right.
Awesome.
Sorry.
All
Thank
right,
you
so
for that. Validating that.
I think I asked most of the questions that I had. I'm so excited because like when I first saw your we met through Angela, just so that people know that you were a referral from Angela Comfort. And when I first saw your one of your interviews, I was like, first of all, I was like, I wish I could ask her some questions because I just have a million in my head. But I also was like, something about her story is just like really like it's just opening something, like I just really felt connected to the story. So to actually finally do a series of just unknown events, like I really would not have thought that you and I would be interviewing right now at all. It's just very amazing. So it just shows you how things kind of work.
Oh,
Um,
my
I,
heart
I
felt so good. Thank you.
I would also love for you to talk to us about your book. And I wrote it here.
Oh,
Um,
what have you learned?
yes, yes. The biggest words what have you learned? You look at your life, the good, the bad, the ugly, what have you learned? So tell us about your book. If you have links or something, I'm definitely going to add them. So let me know.
Well, it's all on Lulu books. I don't know. I have it written on the back of the darn book. I wonder if I
Well, I
have
mean,
my
I
book.
just
Oh my
you have
gosh,
the
I do.
same.
I do. It's humongous. Here, I'll show you.
Oh, good, good,
It's
good. You have a picture. Okay.
huge freaking mug. It's like as big as my head.
What have
This
you
right
learned?
here, okay, because I did it in Google Docs. So word to anybody who wants to write their own book, don't do it in Google Docs. You got to resize everything. Otherwise it comes out as big as your friggin' head. Um, but so yeah, no, just what it says on the back here. Yeah, what's it like to leave the body and re-enter the body? What are other realms of reality and consciousness? Because I also talk about George G. Ritchie's experience. I quote some of his book, and I'm like, yeah, I experienced some of this, like he experienced some of it. What's our purpose? Because um, part of what some of the purpose that they explained to me was like, you're there, you chose this because of your love for the world, and because you are of love, and originally some of the plan is to spread this frequency of love, because earth is such a dense place, and you see so much evil or like bad things happening here, and it needs these people who have this great capacity of love, because it's such a creative, life-giving energy. Um, and how do we heal ourselves? Which is very simple. I can answer that for you right now. So see, maybe people don't even need to buy this book.
This shows how much of an authentic human being you are. But you know, and some people are upset when people are like, no, buy my book, or buy my book, buy my book. And I'm like, I
I
almost
know
want to tell
that
you,
makes me mad. Some people
I
are like, it's
know,
$50. I'm like,
but
really? You're gonna get like $30 for that? Screw you. So
um,
selfish.
But that's how it is when you're selfless. You end up just having absolutely, God knows that's like the story of my life, have absolutely nothing. But at the same time, you have everything because you're helping, our other selves, So
Yeah, absolutely. We are
yeah.
all so very connected. And I'm like, I'm selfless because like I care more about the energy. I don't really care about these material things. They just disappear, you know?
Mm. We talk about how we need to bring love to this planet, and you follow like Dolores Cannon and stuff like that. You hear about the ways of volunteers and the light workers and all these beings that came and heard the call for help for Earth. And the question is like, why is that call? Like, what is going on? That's what I'm saying. This is why I sometimes go into the idea of the prison trap or the soul
Mm-hmm.
trap, because it's like, what is happening here? I mean, we can feel it, but I'm just saying, what on the
Mm-hmm.
souls, what kind of battle is really happening, and why, and who are the different sides, that things would really be this bad. Like we see it, we can feel it, especially as sensitive, we feel it, but it's like, what is it really? Who is it? Who's fighting? What's happening? And it's like,
Mm-hmm.
if we all are living, if you really think about how karma works and how all these lives work, if you do the math, and it makes sense that after a couple of different lives that you're going to start having some problems, some drama, some, it's going to become like a soap opera real quick. And
Right.
you'll have people who are stuck here on the wheel of karma because everybody's trying to, especially when you're not awake and you don't understand that you're hurting yourself by hurting
Mhm.
others. If you
Well, you
don't give
wonder about near-death experiences, though. Is that you're called to, because you get basically wiped when you're going through these dimensions back to your body, is a near-death experience for people. Maybe that's why so many people are coming out about them now, because we're trying to wake up and we're trying to, you know, help these humans in this experience. Hey, man, like there is a battle going on, and I'm so sorry to interrupt you, but I'm just like,
no,
maybe
no,
that's
no.
what these near-death experiences are, to
Okay.
snap
And
us
then for
out.
like, they want to send you a thank you for this video, PayPal, or you have Cash App or something. Or...
Well, that makes me happy because it would be great to have money, but no, I don't know. It just doesn't. Um, I don't know if that feels right or not.
Okay, no, no, it's fine. It's fine. It's fine. Um, okay, so they have your contact information, and they have your book. And I just want to thank you so much for your time. You're a mommy, and you're busy, and you took
Yeah.
time out of your life to do this. So I hope that you're blessed for this service that you provided. And it's been a joy talking to you. We clearly are like kindred in some ways. Like I know you from some other time or space.
I know. It feels really nice talking to you. I'm like full of
So
energy.
I'm gonna let you go, get back to your life. I thank you so much, and just thank you again. Really, truly, you are a blessing. You're a light on this
As
planet, and
as are you. Thank you so much for doing this.
all right, all right. So I'll let you go now. Bye bye.
Bye bye.